Okay, this video that I'm making, I'm testing out the sound because YouTube has changed or made a lot of changes on their YouTube channels and things like that, where I guess they changed it from they had an old setup where when you create videos, it was an old setup, and now they have something new. So I'm trying to test the sound out, and if this actually comes out clear, then I know what mistakes I made. Now I tried to attempt to make 2 videos, and I'll redo those, but the sound didn't come out clear. The visuals came out clear. If the only thing, if it had sound, and I believe it was because YouTube has changed its structure of how you create videos, and so this is looking right now like the sound is clear. And so if this actually works, then I will continue making the video. So I'm going to try to attempt to make a video on this one and see if maybe the sound will come out. So I'm not really sure if the sound will come out. I'm just saying. The video I was trying to create was about an attempt of some college students at Georgetown University. They are actually attempting to band together and make a first attempt at reparations. And so let me see if this is working. I'm looking at it. You probably can't see it. So, okay, let me see. And then I'll retitle this. If the sound is clear, because I'm going to listen to it, because I haven't really been doing any videos for a little bit, a short bit. So this article, it says out of Yahoo, the first reparations attempt is at an American college that comes from its students. And so I pulled up the article. I had read the article, and I'm able to read it again, so it's not a big deal. I thought the article was interesting, so I'll try to get through it, and then I'm gonna try to play it back for myself to see if the sound is actually coming out, because sometimes the sound doesn't come out all the time on these things. So anyway, I thought this article was pretty interesting, but this is Georgetown University right here. So this is getting a lot of momentum. The first reparations attempts is at an American college. It comes from the students. So this is by a Sahil Desai from the Atlantic newspaper originally. And so this is very recent that this came out, and I thought this was really an interesting read. So this is Georgetown University pictured right here. The first reparations attempt at an American college comes from its students. Georgetown's students voted to tax themselves to pay descendants of enslaved people instead of waiting for the school to do something about it. And so it has a whole article about this interesting read, and so I'm going to read it. And it's probably going to show you its original form of where this article originated from, which was out of the Atlantic through education. And so I thought this was pretty good that these students were making an effort. It says a lot about, our world, that, it will probably at some point change with the youth of tomorrow. there'll be some changes. So, education, the first reparations attempts at an American college comes from its students. Georgetown's students voted to tax themselves to pay descendants of enslaved people instead of waiting for the school to do something. And so, when sordid revelations surfaced in recent years of how the sale of hundreds of enslaved laborers in the 1838 saved Georgetown University from the cliff of financial ruin, the college cobbled together a multi-pronged response. It summoned a working group to study how to make penance for the wrongdoing. It held a ceremony to deliver an official apology. So it began giving descendants, who are descendants of slaves, of the 272 enslaved people, a bump in admissions. And it'll explain later in the article what that means. So the Georgetown Working Group wrote that we are convinced that reparative justice requires a meaningful financial commitment from the university. But so far, the university has done little to follow through on the recommendation. The students at the school have now taken matters into their own hands. Last week, in a student referendum, undergrads voted overwhelmingly to tax themselves the symbolically significant amount of $27.20 per semester to create a fund that will support the descendants of the enslaved people from whom the university profited. Many of them live in rural Marengoin, Louisiana, where the median household income is less than $24,000 a year, far below the national average. So the details of Georgetown's potential new approach are still nebulous. Will students on the financial aid have to fork over money? How exactly will the collected funds be provisioned? And the results of the referendum could still be nullified by the administration. But if the vote indeed gets translated into policy, it will mark the first attempt by any American institution to give out reparations. So there's a start. So it reads on the case for reparations. But while students by and large supported the measure, some question whether it should fall to the student body to make amends for the institution's past blunders. We are just one part of over 100,000 member Georgetown community, says Sam Dubuque. So I may not have pronounced his name correctly, so it's Dubuque or Dubuque. A sophomore referring to the school's alumni, and frankly, we are the members of the community who have the least financial means. The tax would raise an estimated $4,000 in its first year, a considerable chunk of money, but less so in the context of an institution sitting on nearly $2 billion in the bank, one that in 2016 paid the school's president $1,436,230 and the head men's basketball coach $3,967,988, and the team finished the year with its worst record since the 1970s. The Georgetown students behind the effort reject the premise that they themselves are absolved from any financial commitment. I don't think that the university paying the fee would address what the referendum seeks to address, says Hannah Michael, a sophomore who helped conceive the idea of a fund. So students voted yes because they believe that they have a financial obligation to commit to reconciliation with descendants. Since 2015, Georgetown has been working to address its historical relationship to slavery and will continue to do so, said Matt Hill, a Georgetown spokesman when I asked why the school doesn't just pay for the funds itself. So the school president visited Maryland in 2016, he added, and since then, Georgetown has met with many descendants and heard many important ideas about how we might move forward together. But the fact that the students may be ahead of the school in paying reparations is evidence of just how little the university has done to make amends of its misdeeds. And such inaction isn't just a Georgetown quirk. Virtually all the antebellum colleges were active participants in chattel slavery. At Princeton, for example, prospective students would arrive on campus to be first greeted at the president's doorstep by his own slave. So, as the MIT historian Craig Stephen Wilder writes in Ebony and Ivory, Race, Slavery, and the Troubled History of America's Universities, higher education never stood apart from American slavery. In fact, it stood beside church and state as the third pillar of a civilization built on bondage. Many of these colleges, Harvard, Brown, Rutgers, the University of Virginia, Mary or William and Mary, have begun to grapple with their slaveholding past, convening symposium, erecting memorials, renaming buildings, and so on. But none has yet acted on a plan that transcends symbols to try to make amends for the wrongdoing it has done. So, a big reason for this is that a lot of colleges aren't quite sure how to actually do that. So, it's really clear that if those 272 people had not have been sold, Georgetown as we know it today would not be here, says Jody Allen, a William and Mary professor who directs the Lemon Project, an initiative at William and Mary to address its complicity in racism. Can't get much clearer than that. But a lot of other colleges, it's murky. That clarity has allowed for some 8,000 direct descendants of Georgetown 272 to be identified, a remarkable genealogical feature, our feat, that is, that may not be replicable elsewhere. So take Harvard. In 2016, the university put up a plaque memorializing four enslaved people who worked on campus in the 1700s. But apart from their first names, not a whole lot else is known about the individuals. Without a defined set of people descended from those four, Harvard says it's not clear what it can do to recompense for its centuries-old misdeeds. So though colleges, ivory-laden, highly selective schools especially, have reputations as bastions of progressivism, behind that veneer, like many other institutions, they are exceedingly cautious and resistant to dramatic moves, expensive ones in particular. When you start doing the math, who knows what the amount might be. So Alan told me, I don't think there's probably a good amount of trepidation at looking closely at the reality. So that might be slowing down some of the schools from actually doing it. So even for a college like Harvard, with a virtually boundless endowment that outstrips the resource of most state governments, the more hefty attempts at compensation could raise difficult questions about who deserves it and how much, and that these institutions would much like to avoid. So, in that way, colleges mirror society more broadly, though lofty reparation plans are in vogue among a set of Democratic 2020 presidential aspirants. Americans on the whole aren't exactly clamoring to hand out cash to descendants of slaves. One recent poll found that just 1 in 4 Americans favored the policy. But these obstacles shouldn't mean that the colleges are off the hook from doing more to atone for the profits they've reaped from enslavement. People think of reparations and they think checks, Alan told me, but that's only part of it. Are you providing courses around the issues? Are you diversifying the facilities or faculty? Are you supporting student organizations? Colleges like Georgetown could adopt a slew of other strategies, starting with the simple ones: enroll more black students. Highly selective colleges are enrolling more minority students overall, just not more black students. Leslie Harris, a Northwestern University historian and the co-editor of the newly released anthology Slavery and the University, told me that the schools could do more to help black students offset the cost of attending. So Harris sees that as the biggest failing of Georgetown's well-meaning effort to going descendants are going to give descendants of the 272 a bump in admissions process. So it's not money like a scholarship, it's just we might admit you. That's all it means. So the students still have to figure out how to pay for college, Harris said. So I thought it was almost laughable. But Harris wants colleges with multi-billion dollar endowments such as Georgetown and UVA to stop thinking about just their own bottom line. They could, for example, donate some of their funds to struggling historically black colleges. So while the bank accounts at wealthy colleges keep inexorably creeping up, the endowments at the 10 wealthiest HBCUs combined still amount to just 1/20th of Harvard's total funds. But even without a mountain of money, HBCUs are overachievers. Nearly a third of black students who earn a science doctoral degree went to a black college. Xavier University of Louisiana, with just 3,000 undergrads, turns out more black medical students than any other college in the country. So one way that the well-heeled schools could make some repair to address these inequalities is to shore up the finances of HBCUs and to think through how to ensure they have better access to fundraising and development, Harris told me. So, of course, the actions of one college or even several wealthy schools cannot wipe away the consequence of 3.5 centuries of slavery and the state sanctioned racial subjugation in one U.S. Surely colleges aren't the lone set of American institutions that have squirmed out of the reckoning with their complicity in racism, but they could be better positioned for atonement than a lot of them. As Ta-Nehisi Coates, the author of the Atlantic's cover story, The Case for Reparations, said in a conversation with then Harvard President Drew Gilpin, colleges have a knowledge that maybe the Chicago Police Department does not have yet of where they've gone wrong in the past. So if there's any hope of healing the scars of racial bondage, colleges will almost surely be at the vanguard of that movement. So higher education should have an advantage here. One asset of the ivory tower is that it gives those within its confines the opportunity to mature and grow seemingly heretical ideas that could one day become commonplace. Many of the schools talk about their history all the time, Harris said, but it's hard for them to look at the legacy of their own wealth. None of us were here when it happened, but we're all benefiting from it now. So this article originally misstated Sam Dubkay's class year. And so this article was by Sahil Desai. And so I thought it was interesting. I tried to do it earlier and I guess the sound was kind of faulty. So I'm sorry for that. And so that was basically what I was doing my video about. And what do you think about this? This is at least one step in a direction of conscientiousness about the legacy and history of a lot of these universities in the antebellum South. And I would not only just say antebellum South, I would say that some of these other colleges that aren't in the South probably also participated in a lot of this. You just haven't heard it on the surface. Maybe there's some talk, but not enough. But I would believe most of your higher institutions of learning, most of the banks, most of the things here in the US had been profited off the backs of slaves. So This is a step in some direction to at least open not only the conversation, but somebody's making an effort and it's coming from the students, which the students are the future of tomorrow. So that kind of gives you a clue as to the conscientiousness is out there, that people are starting to talk more about it, and it is being not just thrown on the table with politicians alone, because I feel like the politicians really are just, some of them are using that as a way to win votes by certain groups, um, or target groups that they feel that might help them to win a spot. But I also heard some alarming news. I don't know if you've seen any articles, but I've seen some articles recently that Trump's campaign is growing momentum, and that he actually has started campaigning and building money a lot earlier than Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders. I don't know if anybody has seen that, and that I know people don't want to hear this, but Trump could get elected for another 4 years. And so I was reading that. If you want me to look it up. And so I know this is sort of like on top of news on top of news, but I think this is really pretty important because this has to do with the 2020 election. And so Trump's 2020 re-election machine builds cash lead over crowded Democratic field. It's out of the Gazette. And so this one right here says AP Newsbreak, Trump building up a campaign cash advantage. And so I think people need to see this. And so I'm going to show you right now. And so this is going to shed some light about this 2020 election. And Trump is already underway. He's far ahead of the game in this. So it's saying that Trump has built a re-election war chest that is unprecedented for an incumbent president this early in the campaign. So he's off to an early start. And I'm going to read this article because this is news that I think a lot of people, some don't want to hear and some do want to hear, because now you really got to take this serious. So this right here is Trump pictured here, and he is gaining full momentum in his campaign. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump meets supporters after addressing the GOP fundraising event in Birch Run, Michigan. Okay, so his re-election campaign, tells the Associated Press, it will report raising more than $30 million in the first quarter of 2019. That's slightly more than the top two Democratic rivals combined. So, out of Washington, AP, President Donald Trump re-election campaign is set to report that it raised more than $30 million in the first quarter of 2019, edging out his top two Democratic rivals, which I believe that might be Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders. I could be wrong about, but we'll see. Maybe they'll say the names of who those people are. I know one was Kamala Harris, I believe. So the haul brings the campaign the campaign's cash on hand to $40.8 million, an unprecedented war chest for an incumbent president this early in the campaign. So Trump's campaign said nearly 99% of its donations were $200 or less, with an average donation of $34.26. So Trump's raising ability, our fundraising ability, has matched the Republican National Committee, which brought about 45.8 million in the first quarter, its best non-election year total. Combined, the pro-Trump efforts is reporting $82 million in the bank, with the $40.8 million belonging to the campaign alone. So Trump formally launched his re-election efforts just hours after taking office in 2017. So he started early on when he took office, y'all. So he wasn't waiting because he knew what was ahead of time. Two, also he's getting money from people who want to pay to keep him in there. because they want him to enact these laws and to do all the things that he's been doing. And I have something else that I read that he was going to be doing, that he was going to be blocking people who come from other countries from getting like help with housing, that they wouldn't be able to get like subsidized housing, they wouldn't be able to get Section 8, they wouldn't be able to get like homeless housing, and certain little housing bump ups if you come illegally from another country and you don't have documentation. You're just going to be out there homeless. um, and also I did an I don't know if anybody heard this, I did an article where he was stating that he was threatening to basically put people from other countries who, if they're caravan people or people coming from other countries that don't have proper documentation, that they would put them or place them in sanctuary cities. He didn't say they were going to give them housing, lodging, food, help, shelter, medical care, just dumping people basically like trash. And so this is really sad. And so I feel like it's just going to be more crime, more problems, and it's becoming the rich versus the poor. That's what it's looking like. So this is news. So Trump's campaign said nearly 99% of its donations were 200 or less, and an average donation of $34.26. But I would bet he got more money from other people and higher up in higher places. So Trump's fundraising ability was matched by Republican National Committee, which brought 48 or $45.8 million in the first quarter, its best non-election year total. Combined, the pro-Trump effort is reporting $82 million in the bank and $40.8 million belonging to the campaign alone. That's a lot of money. Trump formally launched his re-election effort hours after he took office in 2017, earlier than any incumbent has in the prior years. By contrast, former President Barack Obama launched his effort in 2012 in April of 2011 and had under $2 million on hand at his point in the campaign. So Obama went on to raise more than $720 million for his re-election. So Trump's re-election effort has set a $1 billion target for 2020. So Trump's campaign manager, Brad Parscale, said in a statement that Trump is in vastly stronger position at this point than any previous incumbent president running for re-election, and only continues to build momentum. So Trump's fundraising, the RNC, is divided between two entities: Trump Victory, the joint account used for the high dollar gifts, and the Trump's Make America Great Again committee, and the low dollar digital fundraising operation known as internally as T Magic. So the campaign is set to launch a traditional bill bundling program, which it lacked in 2016. So in the coming weeks, bundlers are mid-tier donors who bring, hear that? Bundlers, mid-tier donors who bring in contributions from their associates. We don't know who those people are, do we? But we can only guess. That's probably how he's going to stay in office, I would think. So together, the Trump entities have raised a combined $165.5 million since 2017. That's a lot of money. Trump is benefiting from the advantage of incumbency, like universal name recognition and unrivaled position at top the Republican Party. Among Democrats, dollars are divided across the candidate field of well more than a dozen, while the Democratic National Committee remains in debt and has suffered from being dramatically outraised by the RNC in recent months. So Bernie Sanders topped the Democratic, I was right, Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris. So Bernie Sanders topped the Democratic field in the first quarter, raising slightly more than 18 million, following Kamala Harris with 12 million and beat O'Rourke 9.4 million, and Trump is reporting a haul of 30.3 million. That should tell you who's probably going to be reelected or give you a clue at whose momentum is strong right now. So Republicans have trailed Democrats on online fundraising ever since the median was invented roughly 2 decades ago, but Trump has closed the gap, driving the small dollar donors who make reoccurring donations to the GOP like the party has never seen before. According to RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, Trump's campaign has already had 8 7-figure fundraising days this year and has taken in money for more than 1 million new online donors since Trump's inauguration, including 100,000 this year. So the Republican committee said it is planning on spending $30 million on maintaining the growing Trump email list alone, recently expanding its headquarters space to an annex in Virginia, and will soon invest in developing an app. So 2015, Trump swore off outside money, declaring, and in his speech, I'm using my own money. So I'm not using the lobbyists, I'm not using the donors, and I don't care, I'm really rich. He's quickly reversed that course on high dollar donor. We knew he was going to reverse it. We know he's getting donor money, and we know it's coming from rich people and people who are probably more than likely racist, and they're classist. They're like a classist group where they only look out for the rich and the wealthy and whoever else above. So he quickly reversed that course on high dollar donations after he won the GOP nomination, bowing to financial pressures of running a general election campaign. He'd already raised millions online through the sale of merchandise like his signature red Make America Great Again hats. Trump gave a lone $66 million to his 2016 campaign, but has yet to spend any of his own cash for re-election effort. Aides don't expect that to change. And so that is out of the Associated Press, and that's pretty much how it's going, y'all. So it looks like Trump is way ahead of the game. As much as people probably don't want to hear this, I had to be the one to say it, along with some of the other things. So I'll add that in my description. So I'm going to click back onto this, but I thought that was important to have these two articles and try to put them into. I'll try to do that more often so I can, put in the important topics and stuff like that. Um, but anyway, that looks like what's going to be going on. So let's see if this one comes out. I hope so. What are your thoughts on all of this? We're talking about reparations. Kamala Harris has mentioned it. Bernie Sanders, he says that's not a good idea, that he's not for it. And then you got these students, some of them are struggling students, but they're willing to, each semester at least give $27.20 to build a fund towards the 272 descendants of enslaved people in Georgetown University. And so, should other schools be doing that? And then, should we be worried now because the election is right around the corner? Believe it or not, 2020 will be here before you know it, and already Trump has gained momentum with his rivals, Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and Beto O'Rourke. So, it's like all of this connects in a lot of ways. It's like, what is it becoming? A world where it's the rich and the versus the poor, and we've got these topics that we're trying to tackle that happened, many, many years ago, many decades ago, but students are conscientious about this. And so, with that being said, I'm going to do the top title portion of this video, and like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening. What do you think about this? What would you do if Donald Trump was elected another 4 years? What would you do if they actually tried to work on actually attempting to resolve the issue surrounding reparations in American colleges and also in America per se? Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.